morning, good morning, good morning. It is 5:30 in the morning on a Thursday morning. I kind of messed up yesterday on the trailer. I saw the 13 and I heard the third part of the 13, and so for the first whole rest of the morning I thought it was Thursday. And so on the trailer I said 13th, so tomorrow must be Friday, but today is not Friday. Today's Thursday. It is Thursday the 14th. Yeah, Thursday the 14th on 5:30 at 5:30 in the morning, and that's when we pull a toy from the toy box, a random object from the Random Object Randomogrifier, and we draw it. We do that every day at 5:30. I'm going to go spritz these watercolors real quick so they're nice and juicy. I like them moist. I like them moist and juicy, so that when I use them later on, I can just tap, tap, tap into them instead of having to scrub them. Today we have Hedgehog. This one doesn't appear to be very fast, so we'll just do a nice leisurely little sketch of him. This one, kind of like I said it on the trailer prior to the show that this would have been great for a Tuesday. And Claudia gave the question, why Tuesday? Well, on Tuesdays, I have a meeting that I have to go to at work. I have to leave just a little bit earlier than normal, and I can't risk running long. And so Tuesdays, the simpler the object, the better. But it doesn't always work out that way. Usually it's something really complex, and I have to figure out how to get it done in that amount of time. But today is not Tuesday. Today is Thursday, so that is a worry for next week. So the composition is super simple today. I mean, it's just a blob, right? Hedgehogs are just a blob. My friend Claudia is in the chat again today, and she is getting ready to go to Spain with a girlfriend. Stay where there's a pool in 40 degrees Celsius. 40 degrees Celsius is that boiling? I don't know. That's metric. We don't do that here. I think 40 degrees Celsius is about 110 here in the United States. Fahrenheit. I know 30 degrees is about 90. We don't do metric here. Hedgehogs are about 14 million years old, 14 to 15 million years old as a species. My mom's telling me how nice it is outside. We got some rain last night. It's nice and cool. I always fantasize here about it raining about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, just enough to cool everything down. But what typically happens is it rains just enough to raise the humidity 10 points. But she's right. It rained here last night. We got about an inch of rain last night, and so it's nice and cool outside this morning. My studio is nice and cool this morning. That makes it quite pleasant. But we only have about another month of hot weather here. It'll really start to cool down in September. By the end of September, we'll be wearing socks with our sandals. Of course, that's not any different for me than any other day. I always wear socks with my sandals, but we are acclimated now. No, that's way further back. That should be way further back. More like this. Yeah. We have 2 seasons here in Houston. We have hot and not as hot. My mom's telling me that we'll go from 100 to 90. We have 2 seasons here in Houston. We have hot and not as hot. Occasionally during the not as hot, it will actually get cold, like it'll snow. And a couple of years ago it snowed, and I ran upstairs and I woke the kids up so we could go downstairs and make a snowman. And we made the snowman on the hood of the car because that was the only place where the snow accumulated enough to make a snowman. And the snowmen were only about 2-3 inches tall, and then by 9 o'clock in the morning they were gone. The snow melted, because that doesn't happen in Houston. That doesn't happen. Cold weather is the absence of God's love. So that doesn't happen in Houston. All right. That is a very simple drawing of a hedgehog. There's not really much else to do because everything else is a detail. Solid water is an abomination. My mom says solid water on the streets is an abomination. Absolutely. Solid water is an abomination. I wholeheartedly agree. I wholeheartedly agree that solid water is an abomination. So hedgehogs have been around for 14, 15 million years. They're related to shrews. They're insectivores. They're cute as can be. It's people argue about whether or not they're good for you or we should be or they're a pest because they do get into the garden and they do disrupt a few things in the garden. But from my point of view, you know, they get in the garden, sure, but they get in the garden and they eat all the bugs. And yeah, they root around and for the bugs, but you don't want those bugs. So I think hedgehogs are pretty helpful. They're about 5 inches. They go between 5 inches to 12 inches. So that's about the size of a loaf of bread. Shrews. My mom says, what are they related to? They're related to shrews. Like Elizabeth Taylor. Oh, no, like, yeah, the little shrew animal. Not Elizabeth Taylor. I'm just going to put some shading details in here. Where they are in the shade, these spikes, they're covered in little spines. These little spikes are more prominent in the shade. So I'm going to add them a little harsher in the shaded areas because the tips of the spines would reflect light. So it would be just a little more spotted. And you want to put them in the direction that they grow. So here in the front, they're growing almost straight up, and then they start to lean towards the back as they go back across the animal. So I'm just going to put them in like that. That's about as detailed as I want. They are all over Eurasia and Africa. There are about 19 different species, 17 to 19 different species. The African pygmy is actually a favorite pet around the world. But they're native to Eurasia and Africa. They've been imported into New Zealand, probably as pets. A few of them escape. People just think they're adorable. Now, Claudia says that she thinks it's a type of mouse, but they're not rodents. These are not rodentia. They are related by millions of years of separation, though, because you know all mammals are. They are placental mammals, so that means they have babies that are fully formed when they're born, not little things that crawl up into a pouch like a kangaroo or a possum. We have had one hedgehog in our garden. Claudia says she's had a hedgehog in their garden. You are in the area where that happens. I have a little piece of crayon. I tried to sharpen my clear crayon so I could get a really, really nice tip. I want to do just a little bit of wax resist, but I don't want to do it yet. I got ahead of myself. I don't want to do it yet. I'm going to take a little bit of my gray watercolor. Very faint, because nothing on this thing is white. And so I am going to hit the whole thing with this shade of gray. Like so. And then I'm going to dry that real quick. He says the shrew is a mouse. I thought shrews were insectivores. You know what? Before I go further, I should probably go ahead and do the shading. Let's do the shading around here. I didn't dig into shrews. I stopped at hedgehog. I stopped at hedgehog. We could get this shading on here. And then the next part will be the wax resist. I just think these little things are adorable. I've only ever seen one, though, in the zoos or on television. I've never seen one loose in a garden. They're pretty popular in European folklore as helpers. Probably because of their gardening efforts, keeping the insects out of the garden. But usually, and Claudia can probably tell us more about that, because she's in the European area. She's European adjacent, if you will. I am not. So Claudia can probably tell us more about that. Their folklore, because what I got was that they're clever and helpful, and they use them to predict the weather. Now let me dry this real quick. She says they also eat peanut butter. So, okay, so I have this little piece of crayon. This may be a little difficult for me to manipulate, but I didn't get a sharp edge. Well, I mean, Maybe we can use the stick. It just crumbled when I tried to sharpen it. That's because I used the crayon sharpener. I probably could have used a hot knife and done this, but all I want to do is want to zoom. All I want to do is add some little thin marks so that I don't have to try to make all of the marks with a paintbrush. I have a white pencil just in case this doesn't work the way I intend it to. But we're going to find out. Let's go with a little navy blue, a little touch of cobalt blue. I'm going to add just a touch of forest green. Yeah, I like that. That's nice. I want it watered down because I don't want it to overpower the brisette that I've already done. Maybe a little darker. The wax resist is not doing its job. Probably did not get enough of it on there. So we are going to have to come back with a white pencil. But that's okay. I'm going to darken some shadows. Not that dark, we're not. We're not going for black. There we go. We're just going for separation. Just going for separation. We just want the shadows. We just don't want to lose our shadows, is all. All right. When the colonists came to the Americas, we don't have hedgehogs in the Americas. But we had a similarly sounding animal called a groundhog. And so for the weather prediction, hedgehogs are said to, when they come out in the springtime, if the weather's going to be mild, they'll come out and mill around a bit. But if the weather's going to be horrible, they'll go back in. Claudia is explaining in the chat about how they predict the weather, and it's very similar to where the Indian stone works here in the United States, where the Native Americans had a tradition of using a weather stone. The hedgehog works kind of similarly, in that if the hedgehog is wet, it's raining. If the hedgehog is white, it is snowing. If it is twirling around in the sky like this, it's probably a tornado. That pencil's useless. I had in mind to try that pencil just because it sounded cool, but let's go back to this one. Let's see if this one works. We may not have any luck with the pencils at all. because it's not looking like that's going to happen. Let me try one more thing. Because that's actually a crayon. That stick is actually a crayon. Let's try this. These are supposed to mark on too brown. It worked, but it's too brown. These are supposed to mark on dark. These are meant for dark surfaces. So let's see. I don't think it's going to give us. Well, you know what? All it is essence of. That's fine. That's fine. So yeah, we have. We don't have hedgehogs. We do have porcupines, but we don't have hedgehogs. And porcupines and hedgehogs are not related. Even though they're both covered in quills, porcupine quills are barbed, so that when they stab in, they spread out and fish hook everything. Porcupine or hedgehogs don't have that. Their spines are just sharp and pointy, so they just hurt, but then they go away. Much nicer, much more polite. More like to say, "Hey, back away," as opposed to porcupine like, "Hey, you sucker!" I'm sorry, that was really loud. I'm sorry, but that's kind of the main difference between the way the porcupines and the hedgehogs work. Hedgehogs' main defense, as explained in Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland, is to ball up. They just make a little ball, and Lewis Clark had them ball up so that the queen could use them as croquet balls. And so they'll ball up and put all their spikes out to keep an enemy away, and that makes the birds let go of them. That makes the other animals, you know, they don't want to be poked by the spiky things. And so their spikes are really good defense in that sense. And then you have they have a toxic resistance, so that they can't really be envenomated by snakes. The snakes, they have a resistance to the toxins, so the adders can't really do much to them. They can get away from the adders and recover. So these guys are pretty resilient, cute little things. They're in no way endangered because their cuteness keeps them protected. They have children's stories. Beatrix Potter included Mrs. Tiggy Winkle in her stories based on her pet hedgehog. And Mrs. Tiggy Winkle did the laundry for everybody else. She was always very helpful and friendly. And like I said, you have the croquet balls in Alice in Wonderland. I'm going to move to a smaller pen for this part. That pen is just a little too intense for this part. You have the croquet balls, and then of course there's Sonic the Hedgehog. Sonic the Hedgehog being super fast and generated a lot of interest. More people wanted hedgehog pets because of that. Let's see, Sonic came out in '91. Beatrix Potter's series is fairly old, so is Lewis Carroll. But today there's a lot of people moving towards natural gardening techniques where they control pests in their garden with natural things like hedgehogs. So there's a big move towards that. And so hedgehogs have a resurgence as pets. People are not considering them pests as much. So yeah, they're just a pretty neat little animal to have around. Claudia says Alice in Wonderland is her favorite story. You know what? I like the movies. The book was a difficult read for me. I felt like it was just all over the place. I like the story, but I feel the same way about The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings or Gene Owl's Clan of the Cave Bear. I love the story. The book is just a long read for me, a slog. Claudia says if you don't clean up all the leaves, they easily come into your garden in the Netherlands. You know what? We forgot to date the construction worker yesterday, so I'm going to go ahead and stop for a second here. Yesterday was the 13th of August, 2025. I noticed when I was editing the video that I didn't date it yesterday. And today is the 14th. Imagine that, of August 2025. Anyway, all these little tidbits of information that I've gathered, I'll put into a lesson plan. So if you or a teacher friend need a 20 to 30 minute lesson about hedgehogs, there'll be one available on my blog at artisticbiker.com. And you'll be able to download that lesson plan for free. Let's see here. That is my hedgehog compared to the photograph. The photograph may be just a little different than reality because I did bump the table before we started. I've given up on the little camera. We're going to go back to the phone camera because it is much faster. Let's see what this looks like together from my perspective. You know what? I almost have to do it this way. Yeah, there we go. Get the camera down there where I can see it from my perspective. Because the cameras move and the AI works to make it do a different thing. So there is the hedgehogs from my perspective. So that is what I did this morning. Tomorrow, what is tomorrow? Is tomorrow actually Friday? Tomorrow is actually Friday the 15th. Tomorrow the little girl has already pulled a canister for us. Let's see what it might be. Thank you, Claudia. Let's see what it might be. It is broccoli. Broccoli. I may wear my broccoli hat tomorrow. This is broccoli. If you can't tell, I'm not a fan. But that is what we're going to do tomorrow morning at 5:30 in the morning. If you're watching this Friday the 15th and it is before 5:30 in the morning, then you're watching the trailer and this is what we're about to draw. So stick around and you will hear me tell you about how broccoli was a cruel joke that people play on each other. You were never meant to eat broccoli. So that's it. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. You know how much I look forward to this every day. I jump up out of bed and I run down here and I'm just to spend some time with my art besties. They hold me accountable to my art practice. And if you would like to play along, all of the pictures are on my community page on YouTube. If you just click on my YouTube channel, you can click over on the community posts and you can see all the pictures there. So you can draw them and then if you do, tag me and let me see what you did. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. We will see you tomorrow. Same Artistic Biker time, same Artistic Biker channel. And then we dance. We dance till somebody says they see me dancing. That gives you a chance to click all the clicky things that are around. And then that also gives the lag a chance to catch up so that I don't get cut off in mid-sentence. No